I'm Jordan Lulich, and this is the Lulich Corner, and today I get the pleasure of sitting down with Heavan Demarie from Sihle Insurance. If you haven't watched our podcast before, it's all about bringing you information, knowledge, and education so you can be better informed about the different industries out there. And if you haven't, please like, share, and subscribe to our page so we can roll out more content just like this for you. So Heavan, thanks so much for coming on. It's your second time, right, on our podcast?
Yes.
So I appreciate you coming on. And before we start talking about your favorite topic, insurance, why don't you introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Heavan. I've been in the insurance industry for about 5 years now. Recently licensed in Colorado, moved here about a year and a half ago and have been licensed here ever since. I specialize in personal lines, so homeowners, auto, umbrella, flood.
You know, we're doing this podcast, it's February 2025, and we had hurricanes and tornadoes that hit our area in October of last year. And one of the many conversations that I'm having with homeowners, with business owners, is about insurance claims. And a lot of people are having a challenging time just getting compensated for their claims, getting paid for their claims, having an adjuster that actually responds to them. And so I know that's something as a prospective homeowner who's purchasing a home, or as a prospective investor who's thinking about a commercial building or a rental unit. I know that's all of the forethought of everybody's mind is, hey, what insurance challenges am I going to have in terms of purchasing a property, purchasing an investment, and also getting paid? So what are your thoughts?
So when we think of purchasing homes or properties in the insurance world, there's a few, right? You have your commercial, which we have somebody that deals specifically with commercial. I look more with our personal lines, so personal residential properties. You have things like condos and townhomes. You have your manufactured homes. You have oceanfront homes, new builds, and then your older homes. So for the sake of just time, if we focus on older homes versus new homes, I would think it's safe to say that older homes are less favorable in the market. And there's several reasons why. Personally, this is a conversation I wish somebody would have had with me prior to me buying my home, especially a first-time home buyer and somebody moving in out of state. So when you look at older homes, you see frame versus concrete block with newer ones. You see things like older hot water heaters or HVAC systems, which are going to affect carrier availability and coverages. You have things like hurricane impact windows in newer homes, things like polybutylene plumbing or PEX plumbing. So if we talk about polybutylene plumbing, which we see in homes built in like the 70s, there's only 2 carriers right now in the state of Florida that will write a home with polybutylene plumbing.
Wow.
But they exclude water damage. So if I'm purchasing a home, I want to know that prior to putting in the offer and getting to closing table that I'm now taking a policy on that excludes water damage, which is one of the highest claims filed is for water damage.
We were on vacation a few years ago, and we came back from our vacation, walked in, and we had water everywhere. And it was something to do with our water line in our refrigerator.
Yeah, plants is a big one.
It came out, and so we went through that claim process, but because fortunately we did have coverage with our insurance policy. But yeah, I mean, if you're saying if your insurance policy doesn't have coverage, then like in our specific example, which was I think like $10,000 to $20,000 because we replaced the flooring, the baseboards, we repainted. I mean, it was a pretty big job. That wouldn't be covered in certain policies that you're talking about.
Yeah, so with the polybutylene plumbing, it's totally excluded. And a fun fact, like 1 inch of water in just an average sized home can cause over $25,000 in damages.
Wow.
So that's extreme. So if your water is totally excluded, I mean, that's something you want to know way before you purchase that home. And the same goes for roofs. Like shingle roofs here in Florida, they have a life expectancy of 15 years, metals 25 to 30, and then your tile is 20 years. So again, if you're purchasing a home 20 years or older and that roof is original, you have to replace that home. And there's only one carrier.
Replace that roof.
Yes, replace the roof, sorry. There's only one carrier that will write that policy, and that is Citizens. And then you have a 30-day grace period where you have to replace that roof or you lose the coverage. again, that's something you want to know before you're purchasing a property.
I'd say it was probably 3 or 4 years ago with a previous home of ours. We received a letter in the mail and it was a non-renewal letter.
Yeah.
And the carrier said that they're not renewing our insurance policy because of the age of our roof. The roof was put on in 2005 or 2006. So at the time it was maybe like 15, 16 years old. So I called up our roofer and I was like, hey, can you come take a look at our roof? Maybe I need to put on a roof. And the roofer came out. It was a reputable company locally. And they said, well, you've got more than 5 years of age on your roof. So it was like mind blowing. Like, why am I being dropped and told that I have a roof problem when a contractor in the industry is telling me that I've got more than 5 years of use in my roof left?
So I'm glad that you brought that up, because if you're in a home already and you're receiving notices like this, there is something that you can do. You can have an inspector come out and do something called a roofing certification. And basically, if they can show that there is at least 5 years life expectancy left on the roof, typically we can, write those policies. Maybe not with the same carrier you have, but there's options out there that will still allow for that, as long as you have that certification.
So a lot of people purchased kind of these older homes that you categorized, right? And so going through that, you sign your purchase and sales agreement, you go under contract, you're starting to do your inspections, you contact Sihle Insurance and you talk to Heavan, right?
Yes.
And you start to put in that process of getting an insurance quote. But where are you extracting that information about the property, about the pipes, the roofs? Like what as an insurance company, what do you rely on to make those informed decisions on coverage?
There are a lot of things. The first is going to be a 4-point that we're going to request for those older homes. That's going to really give us a better look into the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC and hot water systems. Wind mitigations are great too, because you can get credits. A wind mitigation can actually save you anywhere from $100 to over $2,000 every year.
Wow.
So definitely want to get those done. I think that there's so much more that goes into rating a property, and it's not just based on an address. So a lot of times I get an address, I get a 4-point in wind mitigation, but there's so much more that we need to look at for the individual. So for instance, we have to have the birthday of the buyer. We're going to look at your credit history. We're not really looking at it like in terms of a financial institute, like the way they would. We're not trying to determine your credit worthiness, but that definitely goes into the overall rating system. We're looking at claim history. So a lot of people have a kind of, they think if you have a claim, it follows the home, it follows the individual. So if you have a claim here and you're purchasing a home here, that's going to affect carrier availability. Let's take it a step further and say there's litigation involved and you're purchasing a new home. Your only option because of the litigation is Citizens.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So
like in our scenario, we didn't have litigation, but you're saying that in our scenario, because we have a prior claim, like that's going to be a deterrent for us and like that's going to increase the cost. So what would you say to someone who has property damage and has to, like in our situation, like has to actually file a claim? And we get insurance to provide coverage in these scenarios. Like, are you advising people not to file claims?
So I'm not saying that, right? Because that's what your homeowners there for, but really we want to kind of cut out like frivolous claims. If it's something, obviously if your deductible isn't met, you're going to pay out of pocket regardless, but just be aware that yes, your claim history follows you for a certain period of time, and if litigation is involved, it's really going to affect that carrier availability regardless of the age of the home. Really consider what you're filing the claim for. Obviously, yes, that's what your insurance is there for, but you really don't want to be filing frivolous claims. Yeah.
And it's harder to file frivolous, in general, it's harder to file lawsuits nowadays.
It is.
In this day and age.
Which is helping.
So homeowners actually have to come out of pocket, and it's a challenge because with these tornadoes and these storms, I've heard of situations where they've offered to pay $2,000 for the claim where a new roof is needed. That's, what do you do? A new roof is going to be nowhere near the cost of $2,000. It's going to be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. And so in those situations, homeowners actually have to come out of pocket, hire an attorney, pay an attorney hourly to move forward with those claims. So do it if it's serious.
Definitely
do it as a last resort, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
But don't just do it to, if there was some wind one night that didn't really cause any damage.
I mean, I think you're going to have people coming out, adjusters, looking at the damage. I always think it's smart to get a second opinion. But do I think that you should go, right to suing the insurance company? I would really recommend that you stop and think about that first, because it's going to affect how you can be insured later on.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
So what do you think about people? Okay, so they're in that stage of they're looking for a home and they're calculating, maybe it's a primary home, maybe it's an investment home. They're calculating the numbers. They're saying, all right, my mortgage payment's going to be X. My tax bill is going to be X, and then they want to know about their insurance bill.
Yeah.
So what do you say about the person trying to figure out what their budget's going to be and trying to understand how much the insurance cost is going to be for a home? Like, can they actually get an idea of what coverage will be for a home before they go under contract and before they have the inspections and the wind mitigation reports that you talked about before?
So as long as you can send us the address of the property and you're willing to provide all of the other information that we're going to need, so the date of birth, your claim history, as long as you're transparent about what's going on with you and your life, your situation, we can provide a quote. It's important to go over everything. I know sometimes people think, hey, I just want a quote on just the address alone, but that's basically like taking numbers, throwing them out there, and then hope something sticks when it comes to time to closing or binding, because it ultimately changes when we really run your information and rate you. So if I was shopping for a policy or wanting a quote prior to putting an offer in on a home, I want to be forthcoming and transparent, and I want to provide all the information that my agent or broker is going to need to give me the most accurate quote. Then later, when you get the inspections done, you send those back over to us and we can adjust kind of those rates and really determine what the final numbers will look like.
Got it. That's awesome. So as we start to wrap up, if people have a question, if they want to talk to you more about something that you mentioned today, how can people get in touch with you?
So I am with Sihle Insurance Group in Vero. I do our personal lines. My cell phone number is 970-803-2301. Again, that is my cell phone, so I'm always available. I'm happy to answer questions pertaining to properties that you may be interested in, or maybe you have just general questions about what the market looks like. So yeah, you can call me. I can quote those. We can discuss that, or I'm in the office as well. You can always stop in, and we're happy to see you guys.
Well, thanks for listening. Again, if you're not subscribed to our page, please like, share, and subscribe to our page. I'm Jordan Lulich. This is the Lulich Corner, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.